Morning, everybody.
You guys can fill in here for me. Yep. Sean, bring here for me.
There we go. We all set?
Yes.
All right, let's take one step back.
One step back next to Lou for us.
There you go. All right, very good. All right, good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Well, welcome to Rapid Transit, the Capital Region office. We're glad to have you here to talk about a very important topic. Before we begin with our comments, I would just like to take a moment to introduce some of the folks that are with us. We have Senator Patty Kim. We have Representative Justin Fleming, Representative Dave Mattson, Secretary Carroll, Logan Hoover from Senator McCormick's office. I have some board members from Rapid Transit I'd like to introduce. We have Eric Bugel, the chairman, Ray Rosen, the vice chair, the treasurer, Keith Martin, and Jason Graves is in the back there. So thank you very much for being here with us today. So I'd like to thank the governor for your bold leadership on transit funding. And thank you for bringing us together today to address Pennsylvania's most pressing need. Today we fight for Pennsylvania families who depend on public transit every single day. The governor's proposal to fix the transit crisis isn't just a smart policy, it's a lifeline for hundreds of thousands of Pennsylvanians. Governor Shapiro understands what I see every day in our transit system. He knows that when we talk about transit funding, we're talking about Maria, who takes the bus 3 times a week to dialysis to save her life. We're talking about James, a veteran, who says to me, without shared ride bus picking me up at my house, I would not be able to get to my chemo appointments. And we're also talking about Sarah, a mother, working mother, who uses the bus and says, I can provide for my family. Let's be clear about the stakes. Without action, we're facing service cuts that will hit our most vulnerable population the hardest. Right now, transit systems across Pennsylvania are losing drivers because we can't compete with wages. We're operating on 60 to 120-minute headways that makes transit almost impractical for some riders. We're watching ridership demand surge. Ridership has increased 18.5% last year, while our ability to serve shrinks. The governor's plan changes this trajectory. With this investment, we can offer the competitive wages to attract and retain skilled workers. We can improve frequency and reliability. We can install basic amenities like shelters and benches so passengers don't have to wait in the rain or the snow. It's just not about helping transit riders, although that would be reason enough, right? It's about Pennsylvania's economic competitiveness. Transit agencies invest millions annually in the Pennsylvania businesses. Every dollar invested in public transit yields $4 back to the economy. When businesses look where to locate and expand, they want to know their workers can get to work reliably and affordably. The governor gets this. He understands that a robust transit system reduces congestion for everyone, supports local businesses, and brings customers to their doors, and helping seniors age in place with dignity and independence. This is not a big city issue. Transit serves all 67 counties, rural and urban alike. Whether you're taking a fixed route bus in our city or a shared ride program in the rural communities across the thousands of square miles, this funding increases the strength of the backbone of our mobility across Pennsylvania. We need to act now. Every day we delay means more service cuts, more fare increases, and more Pennsylvanians left without transportation that need access to jobs, health care, and opportunity. That's why I'm so grateful for the governor's leadership. He's not waiting for the crisis to get worse. He's stepping up with a solution that works for Pennsylvania families, Pennsylvania businesses, and Pennsylvania communities. I urge everyone, legislators, business leaders, community advocates, and citizens across the Commonwealth to join the governor in supporting this critical investment for Pennsylvania's future. Because when we invest in transit, we invest in opportunity. When we strengthen transit, we strengthen Pennsylvania. Thank you, Governor, for your leadership. Thank you for standing with transit. And thank you for showing that Pennsylvania can lead when it comes to connecting our communities and creating opportunities for all. And with that, I get to introduce the great governor of Pennsylvania, Josh.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Rich. Let me just pick up where Rich left off, and I want to thank him for his leadership here at Rapid Transit. Rich talked about how mass transit is an issue that affects all Pennsylvanians, all 67 counties. This isn't just some big city issue, as I think as you said it. We know how vitally important rapid transit is here in South Central Pennsylvania, especially for our seniors who need these resources to be able to get around. And so I want to say thank you for your leadership of this important transit agency, and thank you for highlighting such a critically important role for government to play, and that is building out our infrastructure so that people have the ability to get around, to get to their medical appointments, to get to work, to get to school, to get to go out and recreate as they would like. And so, as governor, I think it is critically important that we are there for agencies like this, and most importantly, the people that they serve. I think some of you were with me a few months ago when I was at a rural bridge in Manheim in rural Lancaster County. I believe the bridge was called the Rife Run Bridge. And that was a day where we were opening up yet another bridge that the Commonwealth had repaired. In fact, under Secretary Carroll's leadership, I'm proud of the fact that we have repaired more structurally deficient bridges than any other state in the entire country. Any other state in the entire country. You know I'm competitive as hell. I like to be number one, and under Secretary Carroll's leadership, we are when it comes to fixing bridges. It was there that day that I got the chance to speak to a mom who was talking about how her life was made better because the Commonwealth invested in our infrastructure. She could get to work more quickly. She could get home to her kids more quickly, and she could make sure that there was less time in her day being stuck commuting as opposed to being with her family and at work and doing the things that she enjoyed. We need to be there for that mom. We need to continue to invest in our roads and in our bridges. But we also need to be there for the mom that rides rapid transit. We also need to be there for the senior that gets to his or her medical appointments here on rapid transit. We need to be there for all Pennsylvanians, no matter how they get around. It is critically important that we provide for them, which is why it is critically important that we invest in mass transit. I am mindful that for as important as those roads and bridges are, and we have repaired more lanes of roads than at any other time in the last decade, and as you heard me say before, more bridges than any other state in the country. I'm mindful that for a lot of folks, getting to church, getting to school, getting to work, I'll tell you what, over a rural bridge. It takes them on a bus like one of those that we have here. To repairing those roads and bridges in our rural and suburban communities, we need to also be prepared to step up for those who rely on mass transit. Systems today are facing significant. That's why last year I want to say a special thanks to Representative Fleming and Representative Madsen, who join us here today, and make special mention of the fact that Senator Kim, when she was Representative Kim in 2024, all three of them voted for this funding, and all three of them are prepared to do it again. Unfortunately, the Senate failed to act, and we find ourselves here in a position where we are now facing a crisis situation when it comes to mass transit. Now, the Senate has asked me to consider marrying new funding for mass transit to road and bridge funding. And I, of course, said yes. In fact, we've been doing that, and I look forward to doing more of it. The Senate asked us to consider different types of revenue sources so we could have ongoing funding for mass transit. And I, of course, said yes. But so far, the Senate has yet to act. I believe this is unfinished business for us and for the millions of Pennsylvanians who rely on public transit every single day. I think it's also important to note that 2/3 of the people who ride on a bus here or a trolley or a train somewhere else, well, 2/3 of them do not have other means of transportation. So this sort of idea that, well, if you can't catch the bus, you can hop in your car and still get there, That option doesn't exist for 2/3 of the people that jump on these buses. No way to get to that doctor's appointment, to the grocery store, the pharmacy, to school, or to work. It's a big deal for people who rely on public transit, especially here, those who do so in the Harrisburg area. Every day, 10,000 people here use rapid transit buses to get to work, school, medical appointments, and a whole lot more. Imagine what would happen if these buses weren't available. Students would have a harder time getting to school. Employers would have a much harder time filling vacancies. And our overall economy in South Central Pennsylvania will suffer if we do not invest in mass transit. We can't let that happen. Under my plan, rapid transit here in South Central Pennsylvania would get a funding increase of $5.7 million this year, bringing our entire state investment up to $29.3 million. Critical funding for this agency. That's a lifeline, not just for the people of Dauphin, York, and Cumberland counties who depend on public transit, but also, importantly, for the businesses that depend on public transit to bring employees to work. It's one of the reasons why so many different regional chambers of commerce from all across Pennsylvania are calling on the legislature to pass my transit package, put it on my desk so we can sign it and so we can fund this important initiative when it comes to investing in our infrastructure. Strong public transportation is a crucial component of strengthening our economy and making Pennsylvania a far more competitive state. Mass transit drives $5.4 billion of economic activity every single year in Pennsylvania. It's logical. You don't need some fancy analyst to explain to you that if folks can't get to work, that employer can't produce their product, can't deliver their service, can't make sure we make lives better. This is a major selling point, our mass transit agencies, to companies that are looking to move here in our Commonwealth. I meet with CEOs all the time and encourage them to choose Pennsylvania, and many of them do. And when we talk, a big part of what they ask me about is about our roads and our bridges and our mass transit systems. And it is high time that we fund all of them, our roads, our bridges, and our mass transit. It is a critically important piece of this budget, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to get it done by continuing our long-term trend of bringing Republicans and Democrats together to get stuff done here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This isn't some partisan issue. This makes good sense economically. This makes good sense for our schools. This makes good sense for everyday Pennsylvanians who rely on mass transit. And it's time we get this done together. So I want to thank all of those who are assembled here today for the leadership that they have shown, especially to those who represent you in the General Assembly. You are, I think, really privileged here in Dauphin County to have such fine representatives in Senator Kim, Representative Manchin, and Representative Fleming. I know they're prepared to vote again to fund mass transit. I hope others in this region are as well, because it will be good for everyone involved. I want to thank the Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Carroll, who works hard every day, whether you get there by bus or you get there by car or some other means of transportation, to make sure people can get there safely and on time, and he does an outstanding job for us in the Commonwealth. It is now my pleasure to invite Shawn Wilson up to say a few words. Shawn has first-hand experience about how important it is to fund mass transit and have a strong functioning mass transit system here in South Central Pennsylvania. Shawn Wilson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for your speech. Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
My name is Shawn Wilson. And for more than 29 years, I have had the honor of serving as a transit operator with CAT and now Rapid Transit. Every day, I get behind the wheel knowing that I'm not driving a bus, not just driving a bus. I'm providing a lifeline to my community. In nearly 3 decades on these routes, I've seen firsthand how public transit transforms lives. I've driven the same dialysis patients 3 times a week for years, watching them fight for their life. And knowing that without my bus, they might not make it to their next treatment. I've picked up veterans heading to VA appointments, workers getting to jobs and support their families, and seniors who depend on us to maintain independence and dignity. Just last week, a passenger told me, "Sean, I have less stress knowing I can get to work. I have steady income for my family now." That's what we do.
That's right.
We don't just move people from point A to B. We connect families to paychecks, patients to healthcare, and communities to opportunities.
That's right.
And myself, I have developed long relationships through my occupation as a fixed route operator with Cat and Rabbit. But I'll be honest with you, we're facing serious challenges. We're competing with fast food restaurants for drivers because our wages can't keep up. Good colleagues I've worked with for years are leaving for jobs at distribution centers that pay the same as driving a 40-foot bus safely through traffic while caring for vulnerable passengers. That's not right. This is why Governor Shapiro's proposal to increase transit is so important. With millions of trips and fixed route and nearly 1 million routes on share rides, we know the demand is there. Every Pennsylvanian benefits from strong public transit, whether they ride the bus or not. We've reduced traffic congestion, support economic growth, and help business by getting workers to their jobs and customers to their doors. For 29 years, I've been proud to serve this community, but without adequate funding, we risk losing experienced operators and cutting services to the people who need it most. We can't let that happen. I am here to stand with Governor Shapiro and the others to communicate the importance for transit funding proposal. Help us continue connecting Pennsylvanians to jobs, healthcare, and independence. Help us maintain the dignity and quality of life that public transit provides to hundreds of thousands of residents across our Commonwealth. Thank you for your time, and thank you for supporting the vital work we do every day. Thank you, Governor. Thank you.
Good job,
Thank
man.
you.
Really good job.
And now, at this time, I would like to introduce Secretary Mike Carroll.
Good job,
Thanks,
Sean.
Al. Appreciate it. Governor, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Mike Carroll, the PennDOT Secretary, and I'm thrilled today to be here with Governor Shapiro and the folks at Rabbit to bring this important message to South Central PA, but really to the entire Commonwealth. Pennsylvania's economic growth relies on our ability to build out a transportation network that puts our tradespeople to work, strengthens our businesses, and improves Pennsylvanians' lives. In the first 2 years, the Shapiro administration delivered over $380 million in new funding for roads and bridges. In 2023, as the governor said, Pennsylvania repaired more poor condition bridges than any other state in the nation. PennDOT and our industry partners repaired thousands of miles of roadway, more than any time in the last 10 years. But, and here's the but, we must meet everyone's transportation needs. To grow our economy and our communities, our infrastructure and public transit systems must both be properly funded. Transit is critical in Pennsylvania. On average, 65% of fixed route transit users say they have no other choice, no other option to get to where they need to go. Nearly 59% of people using Rabbit Transit have no other choice and no other option. That's why Governor Shapiro's budget makes an unprecedented investment in mass transit across Pennsylvania, the first time in 10 years. But we've been here before. Governor Shapiro proposed this solution last year. The House thankfully acted on the governor's proposal 3 separate times, but the Senate did not act. So Governor Shapiro and our Democratic legislators secured an $80 million stopgap in last year's budget to buy us the time to get us to June 30th this year. It's nearly June 30th. The governor again has proposed the first significant transit investment in over a decade, totaling $292 million for transit systems across Pennsylvania. We need our legislature to meet Pennsylvanians' current and future public transit needs, just as we need to meet needs on road and bridge network across the Commonwealth. To give you all an idea of the scale of transit in Pennsylvania, last year Pennsylvania's transit agencies combined provided over 260 million fixed route trips. Those are on buses and trolleys and trains. 25 million of those were senior trips, including millions of trips in rural Pennsylvania, including our most rural counties, Forest and Sullivan. There is transit in every county in this Commonwealth. There is. Especially in rural PA, there's a huge need to make sure we have a fully functioning shared ride program. No matter the service type, transit providers across the state are dealing with workforce challenges and rising costs. The investment proposed by the governor would help stabilize this service and forego service reductions or fare increases. You know, shared ride supports seniors' quality of life and it powers our economy. It provides opportunity, no matter where you live. And opportunity is delivered by transit, just as it is with roads and bridges. It is important to note the Shapiro administration's commitment to all Pennsylvanians, and that includes safe, reliable public transit as safe, reliable modes of transportation across the board. I'm proud to stand here today with Governor Shapiro and the advocates and the Rapid Transit folks to make sure that people understand the importance of this conversation. The time has come. We need to fund transit, and I'm thrilled to be a partner with the governor and everyone else across our Commonwealth that understand the importance. And I'm thrilled now to have the opportunity to introduce a really important voice in all of this. You know, those of us that wear a suit and come to events like this have an important message to deliver. But we're about to hear from somebody that uses transit on a regular basis here in the Harrisburg area, and that's Lou Deal. And Lou, I'm going to ask you to come to the microphone and share your personal experience and the importance of transit here in Harrisburg. Lou Deal.
Thank you, Secretary. Yes, my name is Lou Deal, and I guess the point of my story is about investment. When I was 19 years old, I began to lose the remainder of my eyesight. I called the Office of Oak Rehab and its Bureau of Blindness and Visual Services to start getting services. At that time, I went to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to learn how to read Braille, orientation and mobility services, using a white cane, getting around neighborhoods. And the great part of that service was I got to learn the mass transit system in the city of Pittsburgh. The money invested in me at that time allowed me to continue that training, graduate from college, meet the woman of my dreams, start a career of 30 plus years. And for the last 25 years of those 30 years, mass transit has helped me every step of the way. I had opportunities to do jobs, training for vocational purposes, learn technology, and help other folks with disabilities be more independent and achieve their vocational goals. At the time when I was in grad school, the stat was for every $1 of vocational rehabilitation service invested in a person with a disability, that person would create $10 of tax revenue. Mr. Farr told me this morning that right now for every $1 it's vested in mass transit, creates about $4 to $5 of tax revenue. That's what it's all about. It's about investment. Don't look at it as an object or a problem to be solved. Focus on investment, connecting people to jobs, healthcare, food safety, and a variety of other opportunities. Now it is indeed my great pleasure to introduce to you Senator Patty Kim.
Hey, great job, Lou. Thanks, Lou. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Lou, thank you so much for your story. I just wish I could stand up here and say what Lou said and leave, but I will read my speech. You probably had one of the most convincing stories as to why we need more transit, mass transit funding. Thank you, Governor Shapiro, for continuing to shine a light on one of the most critical lifelines for so many of the good folks here in Dauphin County. Whether you're a Harrisburg University student taking a bus to get to class, a senior citizen using paratransit to get to an important medical appointment, or a worker trying to catch their shift to support a family in the 15th District and beyond. The Susquehanna Regional Transit Authority is being led with renewed passion, vision, and efficiency by Executive Director Richard Farr. Rich actively searches for ways to cut costs and works every day to find efficiencies that benefits riders. He's the kind of leader who will maximize state funding while keeping the focus where it belongs on serving our communities. Thank you so much for hosting us, Rich, and your team. House Bill 1364 will direct nearly $300 million in new funding to the Commonwealth transit agencies, including SEPTA, PRT, Susquehanna Regional Transit Authority, and rural communities. We all recognize that Harrisburg is not Philly or Pittsburgh, but that makes this funding no less critical for our city and region. Simply put, the capital region will see improved access to public transportation options that help them make life happen. Think about it. In its recent year reported, Rapid Transit provided 3.3 million trips and served an average of nearly 120,000 riders per month in Dauphin, Cumberland counties. In addition, Rapid Transit provides seniors with over 40,000 paratransit rides and over 30,000 to individuals with a disability. Ask yourself, without Rapid Transit, where would they go? Once the House sends this bill to the Senate, I am ready to support it, but we need the Senate Republicans to bring it up for a vote. They had several opportunities, as said earlier, to get it done, and there's no more time to waste. It has to cross the finish line this year so we can provide the resources transit needs over the next critical 5 years. I think of the restaurant server who wants desperately to make more money because their restaurant is slow. She gets a call from her boss to fill in for someone, but she can't make it because the bus schedule is limited. This story plays out across every industry where workers depend on public transit, folks missing out on extra shifts, second jobs, and career opportunities simply because they can't get there. Transportation is one of the biggest barriers to financial stability. It makes me think of the saying, when you hand good people possibility, they do great things. Let's work in a bipartisan effort to connect our constituents to their possibilities and to their lives. Governor Shapiro came up with a solution to fix our mass transit problem. I'm here to support it and urge my colleagues in the Senate to do the same. I'm now going to call back Governor Shapiro back to the podium. I've been doing this for so long, he's going to make a joke that the hard questions go to me and the easy ones go to him. So I said it for you.
Thanks, Senator Kim. I do want to note for the record that I invited Representative Madsen and Representative Fleming to say a few words, and I think they basically just said amen, right? Yeah. They endorse everything that was said. Right, especially what Lou said. And Lou, want to thank you for being here today and for letting folks know what this is really all about. The folks who ride these buses here and trains and trolleys elsewhere and subways and all kinds of mass transit to get them where they need to go. And Lou, I was especially touched by what you said about working with OVR. That has been such a priority for my wife, Lori, our First Lady, making sure that OVR not only gets funded, but that the work goes there, it goes on there in just a really important and impactful way. And so it's wonderful for us to be able to meet you here, Lou, and we thank you for your work. Sean, I want to say thank you for representing all of the amazing workers that literally make these buses run, that fix these buses, that get people where they need to go. It matters, the work you do. So thank you very, very, very much. Rich, thank you for your leadership here and pulling this all together. I know it is not easy running a transit agency in today's world, and so I thank you for doing it the way you do. And then finally, let me thank just really one of the most critically important voices in my cabinet, Secretary Mike Carroll, who leads PennDOT and has been such a partner in all the progress that we have made. So thank you, Mr. Secretary, appreciate that. And with that, Patty, did you want to take the, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Tom, you're up.
Governor, how far apart are you with Senate Republicans on
getting some of these things done? And when's the
Yeah.
last time you sat down?
Yeah, I think we've been having ongoing dialogue. I think we all understand it's important to do something on roads, especially, and bridges and mass transit. And I think we're going to find a way to solve this problem. Look, I think what you've seen over the last couple budget cycles, over the last 2.5 years, is we know how to come together and get stuff done. As a governor with a divided legislature, I'm very mindful of the fact that the only bills that reach my desk are ones that enjoy Republican and Democratic support, and I trust we'll be able to do that again this time. The Senate has made clear that they've got different ideas, or they've got ideas, I shouldn't say different, ideas on different funding streams, and I'm open to those. And they've made clear that they want to do something on roads as well as on mass transit, and I'm open to that as well. And there's no reason why we can't come together on this.
Would you support or sign a final budget deal that does not include mass transit funding?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the hypotheticals here. This is important. I think it's important to everybody. I know that there are lawmakers on both sides of the aisle that want to see this get done, and we're going to work hard to get it done. I proposed it back in February. I continue to push it, and I know lawmakers are now returning to the Capitol for some intense work over the next few weeks, and I trust that this will be part of it.
Governor, how concerned are you about a broad economic downturn that would hurt the state's revenues for transit and everything else? I ask because the Revenue Department report, I think from April, showed some softness in corporate taxes. Yeah. How much concern is there that you're going to see just kind of everything coming in under budget potentially?
Yeah, our revenues are fine, and we're going to be fine in this budget. I am, of course, worried about the broader national trends that we are seeing, a downturn in consumer confidence, a rise in prices, I think primarily due to these tariffs. The impact, I can't state enough just how devastating the impacts will be on Pennsylvania if the bill that passed in the U.S. House becomes law. It will mean over 300,000, about 310,000 Pennsylvanians losing Medicaid, 140,000 Pennsylvanians losing SNAP, which is what they rely on to get their food. We've got 25 rural hospitals that right now are operating on a deficit, who would likely have to shutter if these Medicaid cuts go into effect. It was unfortunate to me that your local representative here voted for it. I mean, I've never heard of a congressman voting to actually kick their constituents off of those life-saving services, be it health care or food stamps or food services. It is my hope that cooler heads will prevail in the Senate. I know Senator McCormick and I have talked about these issues. I know he's deeply concerned about the impacts to Pennsylvanians and what these cuts will mean for them. And I'm hopeful that the Senate will understand that and work to pass a bill that ultimately protects Pennsylvania. That is my primary concern right now when I think about the broader economy, is the negative impact of these tariffs and these cuts to Medicaid and SNAP that I think are really going to have quite a harmful effect on Pennsylvania.
To get that $200 million, I think.
I'm sorry. Who are you? Just state your name if you don't mind.
ABC
Oh, Dennis Owens. So normally someone shows up and reads a question from Dennis Owens. I never knew what you looked like. Good to see you.
To get to the $200 million, 1 3/4 additional points on the sales tax will go to mass transit. What is getting that $220 million now that won't get it if this were to happen?
I'm not sure I follow what you're. I want to answer your question. I'm not sure I'm following where you're.
To get to $200 million, you want to increase the sales tax, the percentage of the sales tax money going to the fund.
Not increase the sales tax, but take about 1 3/4 of what already comes in the sales tax and divert that to mass transit.
What is it getting diverted away from, I guess, is what the question is. What is that paying for right now that wouldn't if we instead give the money here?
I understand your question. So, and Dennis, I was just busting your chops before, but it's good to see you here. For those of you who don't know, people show up and say, I have a question from Dennis Owens, and then they read the question, and then I bust his chops for not being there to read the question himself. But look, the sales tax revenue that comes in goes into our general fund. And then, like everything else in our budget negotiations, it's a decision whether it goes here or there or somewhere else. I think it is really important that we not only fund mass transit, but we do so on an ongoing basis. And so I proposed one way to do that, which is to basically set aside this 1.75% of our sales tax to this year and in future years go to mass transit. I know that there are others in the House and in the Senate who have proposed other ideas for recurring revenue. I am open to those conversations. I am open to making sure that different ideas get vetted. But what I think is critically important is that we select one of those revenue sources and that it be done on an ongoing basis. You heard Secretary Carroll talk before about how I provided a lifeline to get us to June 30th last year. That was one-time funding. We can't have one-time funding anymore for mass transit. It needs to be on a recurring, ongoing basis. The sales tax is one way to do it. There are others, and we're going to work through that over the next few weeks.
I have a question from Dennis Owens.
Well played. Well played.
No, I just wanted to ask about the new funding tax revenue you proposed for legalizing recreational marijuana, skills-based games. Can you give us an update on what those discussions look like? Is your goal still to have it legalized?
We've had some good conversations that have been ongoing, particularly on the skill games side. I think folks understand the importance of finally regulating and taxing both of those issues. And we're going to continue to work through it over the next few weeks here. We've had really good, honest dialogue about it.
Still have it legalized in line with the June 30th budget deadline?
That's my hope. I mean, look, I think this is an issue of, you're talking now about recreational marijuana. I think this is an issue of competitiveness. Every state around us, with the exception of West Virginia, has gotten it done. You go visit some of these dispensaries along our border, in this case with Maryland is probably the closest one here. 60% of the people walking into those dispensaries are from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's true in Ohio, it's true in New York, it's true in Jersey. The reality is we've got to catch up. And instead of going and funding schools and parks and roads and bridges and mass transit in other states, I want those revenues to stay here in Pennsylvania. I also think it's really important that we regulate what is now a black market system. And it is critically important that we have a justice component to this and wipe away the convictions of those who have on their record possession of small amounts of marijuana. It's time to have some justice in that space as well. So I'm hopeful we'll be able to get it done. The Senate, the House passed a measure a few weeks ago. It was supported by these two representatives here. I called it at the time sort of an opening salvo in this. The Senate has different ideas. They should put their ideas on the table. But we can't cede this ground to other states. It's time for Pennsylvania to be more competitive, and I'm hopeful we'll get this done.
How worried are you about federal funding in this budget? Because there's a lot of money that's potentially at stake here, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, as I said before, I'm deeply concerned about the Medicaid cuts. 300,000+ Pennsylvanians will lose health care. Over 100,000 will lose food assistance. Hospitals in rural communities could shutter as a result of this. In addition to that, we've seen billions of dollars illegally cut from Pennsylvania. I've had to sue the federal government, and I've sued successfully each time and maintained those funds coming into Pennsylvania. As the federal government prepares to pass a budget, it is my hope that they will not make deeper cuts to Pennsylvania. And it is certainly my hope that our federal representatives wouldn't vote for something that takes something away from Pennsylvania students or Pennsylvania seniors and everybody in between. These are times of real worry. We've got our house in order in Pennsylvania. We've got a surplus. We've got a balanced budget. I've proposed critical investments like mass transit, as well as tax cuts for small businesses and families who are trying to afford childcare. We can do all that and maintain all that in Pennsylvania. It gets far harder if our folks in Washington cut funding that we rely on here in Pennsylvania. So we got our act together. I hope they get theirs together. Thanks, everybody.
What's the latest as you know it after Friday's rally?
Yeah, I think the ball is in the president's court. He made his big announcement in Pittsburgh on Friday. And look, I'm obviously quite pleased that we're going to be able to protect steelmaking here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But no one has signed the documents for Nippon to acquire U.S. Steel. The president, I think, acknowledged when he landed back in, I believe he was in D.C., that he has yet to review the final document. He has yet to sign off. Why is that important? Because this deal requires the approval of something known as CFIUS, which is a federal process that only the President of the United States can sign off on. Obviously, we know then President Biden did not sign off on it. So the President's given us every indication he will sign off on it. And then U.S. Steel and Nippon will have to sign the documents for that acquisition, and then we go forward. The key here is we're going to protect steelmaking in Pennsylvania. It will not just be something we read about in the history books. It will be something that is part of a growing industry in the Commonwealth, and that is critically important. And I've been working for the last year and a half with all parties involved, U.S. Steel, Nippon, the federal government, President Biden, President Trump, and many others to try and get this done. And so I'm grateful to all of the people who have been around the table to work on this. Grateful to Senator McCormick, who played a leading role in it. Grateful to many folks who got this done. And hopefully the documents will be signed real soon, and the dollars will start flowing. The investments will be made, and we'll be hiring a lot more steel workers in Pennsylvania. Thanks, everybody.